Hi, I am Anraj from Third Year Mechanical, and I'd like to talk about The Wretched of the Earth by Frantz Fanon. The reason I picked up this book is because it is called the Bible of Decolonization, and it has inspired various freedom struggles across the world. It was written in 1961 when Algeria was undergoing its struggle for freedom from France, and Fanon, a psychiatrist, was also a part of the struggle. In the book, Fanon talks about the dehumanizing effects that colonization has on the natives and the political, social, and cultural implications of the same that ultimately lead to the formation of a freedom struggle for independence in any colony. He talks about topics like violence and national consciousness and the importance of that and the processes that make that happen in a colony. I'd like to read out my favorite line by Jean Paul Sartre's preface to this book. He says, "Get this into your head, if violence were only a thing of the future, if exploitation and oppression never existed on earth, perhaps displays of non-violence might relieve the conflict. But if the entire regime, even your non-violent thoughts, is governed by 1,000-year-old oppression, your passiveness serves no other purpose but to put you on the side of the oppressors." Thank you.
Hi, I'm Simran Tyagi and I'm a second-year aerospace student. The book that I will be talking about is called Normal People by Sally Rooney. This book was enlisted in Barack Obama's favorite books of 2019. It follows the story of two Irish teenagers, Marianne and Connell, as they fumble through life and are separated and reunited periodically by circumstances. The language of the book is lucid, and chapters are demarcated by the time that elapsed between events. By exploring very usual aspects of human life, this book urges the reader to see the wonder in being ordinary. I found a line from this book that I felt was very fitting given the state of affairs, and I would like to read it out. Connell went home that night and read over some notes he had been making for a new story, and he felt the old beat of pleasure inside his body. Like watching a perfect goal, like the rustling movement of light through leaves, a phrase of music from the window of a passing car. Life offers up these moments of joy despite everything. Thank you.
Hi everyone.
Hi.
Hi, sir.
Hi.
Today we'll be discussing Virginia Woolf's A Room of One's Own, which is basically an extended essay she wrote, and which is considered to be an introduction to feminism in terms of women authors and the fiction they wrote. The paper or the book or the essay makes a case for letting women have a space of their own, figuratively and literally, if they are to write great fiction. So, to move ahead with the discussion, let's go over some chapter-wise themes. So, would anyone want to volunteer for discussing the themes of chapter 1?
I thought that chapter one was a particularly masterful introduction to her speech/essay, in which she sets the context of why she is writing this, the question that she was asked to speak on, which is basically the role of women in fiction. And she answers and starts off with this almost sarcastic tone of why is it not obvious what the differences in the social conditions of the two sexes are. And that is the tone that she establishes for the rest of the chapter, where she does not directly engage with the answer or does not directly spill her thoughts on what she thinks about the topic, but draws some beautiful images, some beautiful contrast, where she goes on to let's say juxtapose the free movement of herself in a garden and the free wild thoughts that she has, and how those are stopped by, let's say, a beadle or a man who is working with the church. Other, let's say, which are not directly relevant themes of why should a writer or any person give descriptions of food, but then she goes on to contrast it with what women are served, and how there is directly, she tells how there is laughter on one side and anguish on other. So chapter one is basically her walking throughout her day, starting with the morning, ending at the night in Oxbridge, taking us through what she thinks that is the most relevant part of every woman's life, why they are not able to contribute as they would like to. And then she starts her next stay in London in chapter 2. Anyone for chapter 2?
Yes.
So when the narrator starts a day two and sits in the room attempting to write about women and fiction in general, she thinks about questions like what effect poverty has on fiction, and she comments on this later too when she discusses her aunt's death. When she goes through the catalogue in the British Library for the books about women and marvels at how many have been written about them, but now not by them in general, she also finds that a great number of opinions and topics about women have been written by men, and a particular statement of one professor, which goes something like this: the mental, moral, and the physical inferiority of women particularly catches her attention, and she comments on this too. And she finally envisions a future in which there will be no gender-based division of labor, and she carefully tries to not blame men for the unequal treatment of women over the centuries. And yet, in spite of her unwillingness to pass judgment in a personal or resentful way, she takes a stand against this mode of operation from a cultural point of view. Would anyone like to comment on chapter 3?
Yeah, I'll do chapter 3. So basically, in chapter 3, the author focuses on the barriers, on the paradigm of women in literature. So she turns to history to look for facts between women and literature. So a very good example in chapter 3, which I really liked, was the author draws a parallel that what if Shakespeare had a sister named Judith Shakespeare, and through this whole example, she basically elaborates the sexist ideas which have been internalized in the society. So she goes on to say that it would have been impossible for any woman to have written Shakespeare's plays at that time. So so basically she quotes this era as Elizabethan. So the women in this era, it would have been impossible. So she tells us that genius for writing such novels requires certain conditions, and that these conditions are merely social and moral. And then Virginia Woolf highlights that while women are posed by material problems, there are immaterial problems also. So immaterial problems are mainly that women do not enjoy any kind of social or mental privilege during that time. Also, she then goes on to the themes of patriarchy. Like there is a quote in that chapter 3 that she is the apple of a family's eye, but she has to perform a social duty on patriarchal grounds. So I think these were the main themes that were highlighted in chapter 3.